Well, hello guys, welcome to another episode of It's Steven Time. I'm your host, Steven Alexander. In today's episode, I have Isaiah Hurtado from APSU Boyd Health Services to discuss the topic of sex and mental health and how we as college students can become more educated when it comes to both topics. So stay tuned, you're watching IST.
There's a Steven Show, the Steven Show, the Steven Show, yeah.
As we all know, college is a life full of adventure and many experiences when it pertains to the topic of sex. Many of us, well, we think we know it all, and we think that we're experts when we get to college. So here to talk about sexual health is Isaiah Hurtado. So how are you today?
I'm doing well, and thank you so much.
So it's Hurtado, right?
Hurtado.
Hurtado. Okay. This is such an interesting last name, so I want to make sure I'm saying it right.
I appreciate it.
Yes.
It's Isaiah Hurtado, and thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be on the show today.
Absolutely. So can you tell us a little bit about your position with the Boyd Health Services?
Yeah, so I serve as a coordinator for student wellness and prevention here on campus, specifically out of the Health and Counseling Center, Boyd Health Services specifically. And so my role is to kind of look at the student population holistically and look at their whole health holistically and see how we can implement programs and initiatives to improve their health and well-being, because we found that when a student is healthy and the best version of themselves, they're able to put their most into their classes and schoolwork and just personal life in general. And I think this topic is specifically important because it can have a tremendous impact on our ability to study and be the best version of ourselves.
Absolutely. And also too, like I want to mention too, a lot of students may feel that they are pressured to have sex or be in sexual relations. You don't have to be. It's all in what you choose to do.
Correct.
But if you're going to do so, just be safe about what you do. I kind of want to know about sexual health on campus, and what are some things that you have encountered with students when it pertains to sexual health on campus? Like what are some things they have went through when they come and see you?
Right. And so I think it's a very important topic, as you mentioned, transitioning to college or coming to the college setting. There is this pressure or stigma of sexual health in general. We kind of often think that all students are having sex or engaging in sex because that's just what we hear in the media itself. And so coming into campus itself, we just like to educate our students on, like you said, safe sex practices, and kind of give them the resources that they can utilize when it comes to engaging in sex.
Right. And for me, I'm gonna be personal right now. I have not had an ounce of sex in college at all. I know that's like very personal. It's a little hard sometimes. I remember one time a mosquito bit me. I was like, ooh, it's a little hard sometimes, but I just had to be real. And that's because I chose that for myself.
Correct.
And that's what I wanted to do. So what are some of the main sexually transmitted diseases that students encounter when they get to Austin Peay? Because that is a big topic that does not get discussed, and I feel like it needs to be discussed.
Right, and I think that's very important. I think the ones we specifically see within our population is chlamydia and gonorrhea.
Oh.
Yeah, definitely not something you want, and it doesn't have a nice ring to it either.
Yeah.
So these are just one of multiple STDs and STIs that are out there, but we specifically see increased rates of gonorrhea and chlamydia among young adults.
Yeah.
Because that is the most transmittable amongst our population itself.
So do you know a little bit like how it works? Like how does gonorrhea, and what are some symptoms of that?
Right. And it's always interesting because every student looks different. Everybody looks different. And so we don't like to touch on symptoms itself because most of the time they're asymptomatic. You don't see symptoms with it. And so I think that's one of our biggest struggle. So we always talk about encouraging testing and getting tested if you are engaging in sex, because a lot of times you won't see symptoms.
Yeah.
You won't see anything. And so it's always important to get your annual checkups, and within your annual checkups to get tested also.
Yeah. So do you find like when a lot of students come to you, they're afraid to actually speak about their issues and are afraid to speak about their lack of education? So how do you push for them to be more educated? Because like you said, if you're going to be practicing these things, you need to be educated about what you're doing.
Right.
Otherwise, you shouldn't be doing it.
Exactly.
So how do you push that for students, and how does the Boyd Center focus on pushing that for students?
Of course, that's a great point. A lot of our students are timid to talk about sex. We don't talk about sex often. I know personally, going back to my education in high school and junior high, it was abstinence only. We don't talk about sex and the dangers of STIs and STDs. So at Boyd Health Services, we are confidential, we're anonymous, and that's what we try to sell to our students.
Yeah.
You can come talk to one of our providers and come to talk to one of people in our clinic, and we'll educate you on that. Don't be afraid to talk to us, because like you said, we're confidential. Everything that you say to us stays in-house and is not going to get out there.
I think a lot of students too, I know speaking for myself, a lot of students may be scared to talk to someone about it because they feel like they can't go to their parents about it, or they feel like they can't open up about what sex is, so that's like they have this thought and they just keep it to themselves. I know for me, in my house, it's just me and my mom, we've had an open conversation about everything. That's what we do. Me and my mom are like sister and brother, so our relationship is different, but she's always talked to me about those things because it's important for people like me to know, my age to know. You get what I'm saying? So I kind of want to talk about also what ways does, I guess, the Boyd Center implement safe sex practices for, I guess, parents to teach their kids? Do you guys also work with parents in the process too? I know people are in college now, but do you guys still talk with their parents about their issues, or do you guys kind of keep that between the students?
Yes, we that's a new initiative we're trying to implement, is reaching out to the parents and encouraging them to have a conversation with their student also. One way we're doing it is kind of implementing this educational material into parent newsletters, and making them aware that safe sexual practices or safe sex is important for your college student, and so you should have a conversation with them. During every ROSE session or orientation session during the summer, we like to talk to our parents about that, about the importance of good, healthy practices, and one point of that is safe sex. So definitely, as you mentioned, parents play a big role into this also, and we like our parents to be educated on that also.
Right. So what advice could you give students who maybe feel pressured by their peers? They may feel like, oh my gosh, I need to be engaging in it because everyone else is doing it.
Correct.
What advice would you give that student who's going through that at this point in time?
You're not alone. Like we mentioned, there is this big stigma around, you come to college, you think everybody else is having sex, but that's really not the case. Most recent statistics show that, especially the generation coming into college these days, are looking for something more than just a hookup or casual sex.
Yeah.
They're looking for an actual relationship, a loving, respectful relationship. And it's less and less students that are looking for just casual hookups and sex. And so if you're feeling this way, if you're feeling like sex isn't for you, or you're not ready to engage in any sexual activity, that's okay. That's fine with that. Because majority of the time, you're not alone. You're not the only one who's experiencing this too.
Right. Well, thank you for mentioning that. We got to go to commercial, but when we return, we'll have more with Isaiah. So guys, you stay tuned, watching IST.
I'm from Clarksville, Tennessee.
Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Jackson, Tennessee.
Hopkinsville, Kentucky.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Knoxville, Tennessee.
Little Rock, Arkansas.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Gaffney, South Carolina.
Seattle, Washington.
Jeremy, Haiti.
I'm from Três Pontas, Brazil.
Chicago, Illinois.
Hawaii.
Phoenix, Arizona.
Brazelton, Georgia.
From Modesto, California. I want to be a neonatal nurse.
An athletic trainer and accountant.
Playing the NFL.
Interior designer.
Physical therapist.
Law enforcement officer.
Ultrasound technician.
Social worker.
Physician. Politician.
Psychologist.
CPA.
Your social worker.
Nurse practitioner.
Physical therapist.
Restaurant owner.
A politician.
Start my own business. Veterinary.
Elementary school teacher.
The NBA player.
Cardiovascular surgeon.
Anesthesiologist.
Businesswoman in Nashville.
Social worker in Miami, Florida.
Politician in Washington, D.C.
Colorado.
Orlando, Florida. Houston, Texas.
Chattanooga.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Seattle, Washington.
Nashville, Tennessee.
San Diego, California.
Nashville, Tennessee.
New York City, New York.
San Diego, California.
Atlanta, Georgia.
Nashville.
Los Angeles, California.
New York, New York.
Memphis, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee.
Orlando, Florida.
Los Angeles, California.
Baltimore, Maryland. Clarksville, Tennessee.
Carolina Beach, Carolina.
Philadelphia.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Clarksville, Tennessee.
You can help support Austin Peay students who don't have enough to eat by donating to the Save Our Students Food Pantry. The Save Our Students Food Pantry is looking for soup, pasta, canned meat, canned beans, peanut butter, and fruit. You can drop off your donations at the food pantry on Home Avenue. It's open Tuesdays through Friday, 8:30 until 4. For more information, call 221-1620, a campus reminder from Austin Peay.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Stephen Alexander. Join with me, I have Isaiah Hurtado from the Boyd Health Services here to what am I saying? What am I saying, y'all? I have him here with me discussing a couple of things that are very prominent within our community. So now we're going to talk about health and wellness.
Of course.
So just going into that, what do you guys do at the Boyd Health Services to kind of mentor students who are going through mental health issues?
Of course. Well, first thing, all our providers within Boyd Health Services are trained when it comes to recognizing mental health needs and getting students to the right resources available to them to kind of help them through that. To backtrack on that, we do have health and counseling services, specific counseling services in our ARD building also.
Okay.
And so that's a tremendous resource that offers not only one-on-one counseling, group counseling, but also brief informational counseling also that will kind of help a student through whatever emotional or health concern that they might need.
Okay. I want to know kind of what are some signs that a person may be going through if they have a mental health issue and they don't know that they have it.
Right.
How can they pick up on the fact that maybe they do have it?
There's definitely multiple different signs out there to kind of they can pick on. Number one is change in mood.
Okay.
Any change in energy level or just enjoyment of things that you've enjoyed in the past, that's a clear-cut sign that that there might be an emotional or mental health concern also. But we definitely encourage students, the best way to figure that out or to find out different signs is to go on our website. We offer a free online mental health screening that students can answer a couple questions and can kind of and then direct students to appropriate resources after that.
Okay, so I know mental health is a very prominent discussion in our society in general.
Right.
And specifically for college students and just people watching, why is it so important that this topic is discussed now? Because you see more and more and you hear more and more people talking about it now. Why is it so important now?
It's so important because it has a tremendous impact on our ability to do what we want to do and to succeed. Looking at our population specifically and looking at college students, the top 5 factors, 4 of them are mental health related to your ability to succeed in college and your ability to get to graduate within 4 years and get that college degree. So it has a tremendous impact on our ability to go day to day and succeed in what we want to accomplish.
I see. So how do you guys at the center try to help students get out of their shell and talk about it? Because it's kind of hard for those who do know that they have a mental health illness. How do you guys not convict them and make them feel safe when they're talking to you guys?
I think it just comes from creating a safe and comfortable space itself. Our office, you know, as we mentioned, is comfortable. Our providers, our therapists, counselors, they're wonderful. They want to build a connection with you and kind of create this safe space, as you mentioned, itself. In addition to that, we want to create this culture on campus that's okay to talk about it. You know, it's okay to talk about mental health, and that's what a lot of my office and a lot of our team is doing currently, is trying to get across this message that it's okay to talk about mental health. That doesn't mean you're less than, and kind of break the stigma with that itself.
Right. So also with people who are encountered with people who maybe have a mental health issue, how can they be encouraging? Because sometimes when you don't have the right support system and you have someone who's not encouraging you as a person who's going through mental health, how can they surround themselves with people who care about them and can mold them to be a little bit better and have a safe environment and just a positivity, you know? That's what it's about.
That's a fantastic question. We get that all the time. You know, students asking, well, how can I help? How can I help another student? And the first way is just to have an open conversation with them. That's one that we always encourage students to have, is just have a conversation with them first. To take it a step forward, our offices provide what's called QPR training, which is gatekeeper training for students who want to actually learn how to become better advocates for mental health and how to navigate these conversations. So that's a 1-hour training where we teach students how to initiate a conversation, how to hold a conversation, and then get students to appropriate resources itself. So we definitely encourage every student to attend that training, because that's the best way to kind of learn how to navigate through those conversations.
Okay, okay. So what words would you have for someone who, I know for me, I had a small transition into mental health. At first people talked about it and I didn't know what to say when someone would talk to me about it. A lot of times I thought people were using it as an excuse. I felt like I was being insensitive. I didn't have any feelings towards it, but the more I became more educated myself, that's why I encourage other people to become more educated. I find that this is a real thing and that people are actually going through this. So I can, by me not being guarded, I can open my heart up and listen to what people have to say, because sometimes people just need to hear, need to hear, and sometimes people need to go to someone just so they can speak. So how can people understand that? Because I feel like that, how can people in my shoes who did not believe in it, how can they change their hearts a little bit?
It's not easy to do, like you mentioned, but the first place to start is getting more educated with yourself. And as we continue this conversation, we'll see more and more people talking about it, which I think is the best way to kind of break in that stigma itself. But also knowing that when we talk about mental health, it could be something as simple as stress too. Stress can have a tremendous impact on our ability to perform what we want to the best of our ability. And so everybody experiences stress in some capacity. So students are not alone in this. There's a lot more students that experience mental health concerns like stress, anxiety on a daily basis. So to answer your question, it's really to start by educating yourself and be an advocate for your fellow peers or your friends.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Well, guys, we have to take another commercial break, but when we return, we'll have more with Isaiah, and he's going to be joining me with a discussion. So stay tuned. You're watching IST.
Sure, I look cute now, but when my owner lost his job, it was rough. I was living on the street, and one night, me and this Cocker Spaniel got into it so bad, I wound up looking like an ice cream cone. I cried a little bit, but thankfully I got rescued, so I'm running, I'm jumping, all back to my old self. And I'm ready to give unconditional love, even if you put a lampshade on my head.
Welcome back, guys. It's time for us to get in the zone. Today's topic is about correlation between sex and mental health. So the topic is today, how can poor sex habits and mental health correlate with one another?
Yeah, I think with that, it's important to understand no matter how experienced you are when it comes to having sex or engaging in sexual activity, you're still going to have an emotional connection with the partner or with the act itself.
Yeah.
So sex and mental health does have this correlation amongst each other. You know, no matter if you say it's just a hookup or a one-night stand or anything such as that, there's still going to be some feelings correlated with it itself. And so it's important to understand that. And as we mentioned before, take that in consideration. Look at, think through every decision you make before ultimately doing so.
Yeah, okay. So you talked about a little bit about, I just kind of want to know how, for college students, you know, if sex is such a thing that we use to become, I mean, not all of us do, but if it's some of us, if we use it in a way that it's what gets us entertained and you have a mental health issue, how do you navigate through that? Because it becomes a need for you.
Correct.
If you get what I'm saying, it makes you feel sustained.
Of course.
So how can a person deal with that?
Well, I think that's really on a case-by-case basis, and we do see that often. Students who engage in sex will kind of get, I don't want to say addicted, but it does kind of, you use it to cope with other things going on in your life right now.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely an unsafe practice when it comes to overcoming any mental health concern that you might have itself. And so first it comes with talking to someone about it, whether that's a friend, colleague, coworker, or us at the Counseling Services and Boyd Health Services. First talking to someone about it is going to be the best way to go about it, and then finding other ways to cope with whatever mental health concern or whatever issues you might have going on, instead of just engaging in sexual practices for that. Because like we said, you will have an emotional connection with that, and it'll hurt either yourself or somebody if you continue to do that.
Absolutely. Is there a way for people who does have a mental illness, can they still have healthy sexual relationships without it interfering within their mental illness? I know it can happen, but a lot of people don't think it can happen. So I just want to hear your advice on it.
Of course, I think anybody can engage in a healthy sexual relationship. The one thing we always stress is healthy communication, though. Is make sure you have a relationship with the individual you're engaging in sex with is number one, and it's the most important thing. You should be able to communicate everybody's intentions and what you hope to get out of it itself. But also it comes back to consent too, making sure everybody feels safe and it's not a coercive atmosphere, and that somebody can say no at any time.
Right.
So healthy communication is going to be best when it comes to that. when it comes to having a conversation with your partner itself.
Yeah, and I want to say too, I know this is a little branching off a little bit, but I also want to say for y'all watching me, and I hope y'all are, because I'm about to get real right now. For people who says, if they say no during sex, if they say no, I don't want to do this, listen to what they're saying.
Right.
Because they're not saying no for if a person's inebriated and they're saying no, that means no. Because at that point, if you take advantage of that, it's rape. It is what it is. It's rape.
Right.
And I want college students to be educated about that, because especially if you're in Greek life, you're having a good time, or just outside of Greek life, people get caught up in situations that they can't get themselves out of because they made the wrong decision. And yes, a person, okay, I'm gonna say this too. Yes, a person might say no, but their body's saying yes, but their words speak louder than what their body is saying. Because yes, the body may react, but their words are saying no, so you have to follow that. Because again, if you don't follow the words, it's rape. So how do you guys instill that in other students as well when they come and see you guys?
Yes, definitely. That's number one, making sure that we understand everybody is in the right space and the right mindset to engage in sexual activity. And there has to be a clear yes. Whether that's verbally or non-verbally, there has to be a yes within that conversation itself. And so we always stress that. That's very important, and I appreciate you hitting on that, because when we're going to engage in sexual practices, that's important to have that conversation beforehand.
So you said non-verbally. So what does that mean, non-verbally? Someone saying yes non-verbally, what does that look like? What is that?
Right. We always prefer a clear yes.
Okay.
You know, that's always, we're going to stress a clear yes. But at the same time, there can be non-verbal cues, such as, you know, enjoyment or continued enjoyment. But as we mentioned, we need a clear yes. You know, we want to be sure, be sure both parties are on the same page. And so we're always looking for that yes.
So don't just go off of body language, because body language will mess you up, guys. Don't just go off of body language. Yes, for sure. So lastly, in what ways would you encourage students to just truthfully speak out about their issues pertaining to sex and mental health? Because, I mean, like you said, a lot of people just keep on the hush-hush and don't want to talk about it. But how can you encourage people just to speak about it? Because it's things that we do as humans. And if you have not had sex, you will, and get married, or if you're not, whatever. I don't know what your background is, but so what would you say to people in that predicament?
I think it's just being open and honest as we're being here. I mean, that's probably the best way to go about it. Sex is something that we see in society. I mean, that's going to be a part of our lives in some capacity. And so we need to be, one, educated about that, and understand our limits and what we want out of it. But at the same time, have an open conversation, whether that's with your partner, whether that's just on campus. When it comes to mental health and sexual health, we should be able to talk about it in a normal conversation itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Isaiah, I thank you so much for your time today. You have been so helpful, so insightful, and encouraging, and I want other students to just really take a lot from this and just really grow from this. So thank you for your time.
Of course. Thank you so for having me. I love to be here.
So guys, thank you for tuning in to IST today. Stay tuned for next week with more news and entertainment. And always remember to, let's go Peay.